All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you guys are. Thank you for joining us at Talent News Webinar Wednesday series. I'm super thrilled to be running this again and seeing you guys today. I want to give a shout out to everyone who's joined us. I can see people from Union Bank. I can see people from Watsons. I can see people from ABS-CBN, Asia Pro, Ginebra San Miguel, Fujitsu. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're here with very amazing, really cool people in our panel. So I wanted to introduce them to you very quickly, and then we'll jump straight into the discussion and topic for today, which is talent acquisition in the now normal. So just before I do that, I wanted to share with you what's on your screen, just so you can see our panel very well. I wanted to share with you what's on your screen. You'll notice that you've got a preview, right? So you've got your Q&A portion on the right side. Feel free to ask us any questions that you have, and I'm happy to pick that up and share that and ask that to the panel. You'll also note that we've given you some resources on the left side. So on the left side, anything that you want to download, anything that you think might be relevant for talent acquisition, we've loaded them at that portion. We've also given you some links. So feel free to visit those links and let us know what you think. And of course, you're also going to see the slides from our panelists as they're talking. So again, whatever we've got here, we'll be glad to share that with you, and so we can have a good exchange even after this webinar. All right. So let me introduce to you our panelists for today. Just very quickly, we've got LA Cruz from Arcades. So she was telling me the story yesterday when we were doing a sound and video check that she was supposed to be responsible for the HR operations side of things when she started, and then eventually took on more countries, took on a global role, and now she is orchestrating a lot of the people, decisions, and challenges that are happening in the organization. So welcome, LA. Thank you for joining us here on Webinar Wednesdays.
Thanks, Ange. My pleasure.
All right, nice, thanks. And the next panelist that we have today is someone who I've known for decades. Without really revealing our age, I'd like to bring to the panel someone who's really a tech guru for me, and someone who truly understands how talent acquisition technology can reshape and remold the HR profession. Please welcome Taligent CEO, John Austin. Hi, John.
Hey, Ange, thank you so much for having us. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Awesome, thanks. And last but definitely not the least, we've got one of the powerhouse banks with us. Joining us here is also the talent acquisition head for Union Bank, Abby Cabarte. Hi, Abby. Welcome to Webinar Wednesdays. I understand that Abby's got some mic things that she needs to resolve, so I'll have her jump back into the call later, but no worries on that. We'll catch up with Abby later on. So I'm going to start the panel very quickly, and I'm going to start with LA first, coming from an organization perspective, right? So tell us your story. This pandemic has changed a lot in the way that we're hiring, and I'm sure people in the HR community are wanting to learn what was the adjustment like. What are the first things that you had to do to make sure that everything was covered? LA?
Yeah. Okay. So, as you know, Arcades is an engineering consultancy company. So it was actually quite a challenge for us, and making sure that everyone was agile and flexible when this happened. Like I was telling you, like yesterday, like about 70% of our employees, especially like the technical people, are using desktops. And when you're an engineer, you work with two big monitors, and that alone is a challenge. We wanted to make sure that we continue, the business, our operations. So we had to really mobilize quickly and work with our teams. And this is, I think, where we saw the agility of people, the collaboration, the teamwork of people really helping each other, even chauffeuring people around to make sure that they're able to bring home their work tools so they can continue working. We had to also ensure from an HR standpoint that we really genuinely partner with the business, just making sure we understand what they really need during this time. While we launch a lot of initiatives that you can see on the screen, like we launched Arcadis Fit because we know health and safety and well-being is very important for us, not just the physical one, but even mental, emotional, the whole aspect of total well-being. And then we had a lot of health and safety reminders. We had to review how we do L&D now. Like everything is now virtual. Try to be creative in how we do our meetings. We even launched Arcadis Radio globally, and now we see talents of our people being host and DJ, and making sure we still have that positive environment when we work at home. So you can see like almost all of us now in Arcadis globally are working from home. And to be very honest, before the pandemic, we thought Philippines in particular, or the other locations that I handle, the Global Excellence Centers and the shared services, are not ready to be flexible. And we were glad to be proven wrong. We saw that people were actually still very productive, really working well with their teams, collaborating more. We have a lot of creative things that we work now. Whenever now you start meetings, you use technology now a lot, even, all this Kahoot, and you even had like a Bring Me activity during one of the team meetings, just to make sure like everything is creative and the positive energy is still there. And it all starts from the leadership team. From a talent acquisition standpoint, of course, the employee experience has changed, and we were due to onboard a lot of people in our locations, and now like the challenge is to make sure we're also agile in ensuring that we onboard them. Like as simple as, okay, so you haven't officially started with us, so I hand you an expensive tool already, like a desktop and 2 monitors for you to start working. So all these things, I think we were forced to really work well together and be very agile. This situation has forced us to really go digital, which is also one of our key priorities. Yeah, so I think it was not just the CTO or the digital leaders that has forced us to go digital, but it's the pandemic. So we'd like to see that it has shown the maturity of our organization to really work from home and still be productive despite the challenges.
I love that. It's really forced digital transformation. So we'll come back to that, LA. John, how about on your side? You do work with global clients. We've seen that adjustment come in where, as LA said, people have been forced into this digital disruption. How are your clients responding? What are the key changes that you're seeing happening in the market because of the now normal, as we call it?
Yeah, and thank you so much. And digital disruption is the right way to describe it. And Ali, as you were mentioning, you mentioned that keyword agility several times, and we're certainly seeing that be front and center in a lot of the companies we're working with. As our teams have been working with our clients, it's the old story. You sort of put them into a couple of buckets. There seem to be the organizations that are reacting and those that are responding. So a couple of things that we've noticed clients doing that who are responding, they're doing 2 key things. First of all, they're mapping the candidate journey, and they're really treating their candidates as their clients. For example, as we know, group assessment centres aren't that cool right now in terms of interactivity. So a couple of the major financial services companies who are running large assessment centres are now doing one-on-one video-based interviewing, and the leaders touching them earlier in the journey to keep candidates engaged. So that's a sort of the first thing we're seeing is like mapping the candidate journey, and really understanding what we need to change and touching candidates at the right time to keep them fully engaged through that talent acquisition process, Ange. Another
right. So
the other
mapping
bucket,
the candidate journey is super critical.
Yeah, mapping. Yeah, getting your Excel spreadsheet out and understanding what's broke and where we need to engage. And another thing we've noticed the leaders doing are involving key stakeholders in their organisations and putting a real team together, not just with their human capital or their HR hats on, but involving engineering, particularly thinking about where integration's needed, and risk management where things need to change, and the learning and development teams as well for communication. So that's another area we've noticed. Shall we say the more proactively successful our clients are succeeding. On the flip side, Ange, interestingly, where there has been, shall we say, less success is where clients have just reacted and just turned things off or on without mapping things out and thinking through what the ideal candidate journey is. So that's, and without going to those too deep, I just, in summary, map the candidate journey, involve the key stakeholders, and we're seeing video interviewing replacing interactive, and working out where that video interviewing should go.
Amazing. Absolutely helpful. So I'm going to take a pause. Just given what LA and John have said very quickly, I now want to engage our audience and ask a poll question. How adjusted are you to the current remote talent acquisition setup? So once the lockdowns were announced, the pandemic was announced, and we're seeing it and monitoring it, I'm now asking the audience where you think you are. Are you 100% fully adjusted? You talk about leadership, you talk about candidate experience, you talk about creating very focused teams. Are you 100% there? Maybe 75%, 50% minor adjustments, 25% slight adjustments? Or, you're finding that you didn't have to change anything at all. You're doing the same process that you did even before all of this has happened. So I'm going to give about a minute for everybody to reflect and take the time to answer this, and we'll look at the results very quickly and then jump onto more detailed Q&A with our panelists. Right, so don't forget to submit at the bottom. Once you pick your answer, just click on submit, and that's going to go into our report in the next slide. Okay, so I hope everyone's answered that. Let's look at the results. Okay, so there are about 18% of the audience that are saying, we've fully adjusted. Priorities are redefined, and we're utilizing technologies from hiring to engagement. Super awesome, guys. 75%, there's about 22% that say we're at 75%. Major adjustments have been made. Another 27%, or nearly 1/3, said we're 50-50. We're nearly there, where we're still making adjustments, but we're in the midst of things. So between responding and, John, what was that you said? Either you're reacting or you're responding, right? So I guess a lot of our audience is on the responding side more than just simply reacting. And then we've got 1/3 that are sort of making slight tweaks, and again, moving into other technologies that can help set up their talent acquisition. All right, so I hope this is helpful to frame our discussion. We're now going to zoom in on talent acquisition, hiring talent. Of course, there are companies that are still, I would say, putting a freeze on their hiring. But for you guys, I know you work with your teams, you work with your customers. There's a lot of hiring going on. How has that changed? I'll go back to LA again. You mentioned a lot of great initiatives, and maybe we can zoom in on talent acquisition. What were the game changers for you, LA?
I think now, given the situation, it has to be the right balance between planning, which means talent pooling, right? And again, going back to what I said and what John echoed on the whole candidate experience, the candidate journey. While as a talent acquisition team, we want to plan ahead, and start having the talent pool, in the local language. Ayaw mo silang paasahin, di ba? Like, you don't want to pull too early because you also affect the candidate experience. Like, you post something and then, after, the candidate kept waiting, and then you tell the candidate, oh, I'm sorry, the requisition has not been approved. So I think it's having that right balance, like which ones do we start actively pooling, and which ones do we take a break because we think that there are a lot of talents available in the market. We won't need a lot of time to pool them anyway. Because to be very honest, of course, now we kind of face our hiring, while we had a lot of openings before. Now, of course, the organization wants to look at sustainability and pace the hiring that we do. So for us, that's critical, like that balance between proper planning and pooling. And ensuring that the candidate experience is there. And then third is also ensuring that our hiring managers are equipped with the right skills of, targeted selection interview, right? Because now you don't really get to see the candidates in person, although we've been doing that a lot because, we work with hiring managers that are outside, the Philippines, outside the country. It's still different, and just ensuring that they fully understand the skills that is required for the job, and also checking for the culture fit, because that's also very important for us, especially now the new normal. Are we hiring like the right, people for that? And for me, those are the three key things that have changed. Of course, we relooked at all our processes now and see also. I think it's a good time to step back, actually, and see the current processes that we have. Are this the efficient processes that we have, or it's now time to review them and make some changes. It has given us that time to reevaluate the way we do things and re-engage better with our stakeholders, the hiring managers, to really try to understand their requirements, even asking the most critical question, like, do you really need this talent now, or do we have some resource from the other locations that can, do this for you, or are you really telling us these are the must-have skills, or are this just nice ones? Because given the availability of talent now, I think that's also something that we need to address. So for us, the changes were really focused on the three things, the candidate experience, the right balance between planning and ensuring that our hiring managers and, anyone who interviews in that, whole, process is well equipped to really spot the right talent that is fit for Arcadis.
Right. So really interesting. Thank you, Ale. So zooming in on being able to balance between planning and also being resourceful, as you said, looking for resources within your teams or probably in your other offices to make sure that you're not hiring out of impulse, but you're really strategically looking for team members who can deliver those competencies and those skills. Right. So I'll jump into John talking about competencies. What are the competencies that are critical in this day and age? Everything that's going on, John?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Ange. Ali, back to what you were saying about not just getting the competencies right, the values, because we all know that jobs or job descriptions are going to get some pretty rapid reviews and consistent reviews over the next year or two while we settle back down to whatever normal is. So what we're seeing is a lot of focus on understanding what the key competencies are that could be generic or applied across many jobs. And I'm sure all of our listeners, Ange, can relate to the first one I'll share, of course, and that's grit or resilience. There's some good data coming through from screening at the moment showing that grit and measuring resilience is predicting how well people handle ambiguity. So I'd be suggesting to all our listeners that they put a little bit more focus on screening where they can on grit or resilience, and that can be just some good testing questions followed up with interview questions that can be framed in a video scenario, so it doesn't take extra time and it gives you that data to screen on. And the second one, and I noticed the second area as an employer myself, like speaking to team members who, shall we say, have less of this than others, and that's the construct of conscientiousness, which is all like planning and detail and follow through. There's no doubt that those who are higher on that are able to cope with the ambiguity a little bit more effectively, Ange. So grit and conscientiousness in terms of detail planning and follow through. And Ali, I'll just steal your agility. I'd put another word in front of that, learning agility, in terms of being agile as jobs quickly change, and getting some data together on one's learning agility. And learning agility for our listeners is basically the application of problem-solving skills, because as we know, things are going to change more quickly as we get through all of this. Things are changing quickly as we get through all this. So having applied problem-solving ability with grit and, of course, following through and finishing things. Because we've all had those phone calls where we've had to take minutes and get our emails off fast and track things and speak to peers and colleagues, friends, managers, subordinates all over, team players all over the world, really.
So grit, resilience, and agility. John, I always get asked this question. What should I prioritize? Skills, traits? Has this changed for you and your clients over time?
Well, right now, the big focus we're seeing is definitely on grit, in terms of not just selection, but also coaching and development, as we all work with our team members and coach our leaders to get them through the challenging times. And Ali, what are the key values for you guys at Arcadis? We're certainly noticing values of coming. We're being asked more and more by our clients to help them screen on values for selection. How are you guys applying values?
Yeah, so I mean, I would agree. For example, in your statement, like resilience is one, something that we look into. But as a company, of course, innovation and teamwork are just two of the values that are important, and I think very relevant at this stage. So when we do hiring, we also look at what, again, mentioning learning agility, because we want to ensure like the people that we hire, if, for example, there's a downtime in this particular region or country that we service, is that person trainable? So, I could upskill or reskill that person and use that person, in another function or in another specialty, because we're an engineering company. And so it's also hiring not just for your present need, but also for the future needs, seeing how the organization will evolve and the needs of our customers will evolve. So we really think, like, the point of John, that we look for these traits are very relevant for us, given the values that we have as an organization.
Yeah. I had a funny story that one of my team was sharing. I had a funny story one of my team was sharing with me, Ellie, Ange, that they were depressed on one hand. One of our team were depressed, not depressed, down, that one of their key clients, an airline who will remain nameless, had obviously had to lay a lot of people off. And then another account manager whose client was in the aged care sector was suddenly asking how we could help them screen more people faster, because they were getting lots of applicants from our cabin crew that were sadly unemployed. And guess what? The same traits that we talked about, resilience or grit, which you have to have as a cabin crew member, as we know, us all being on many planes, and being conscientious and following through, which are two critical traits for aged care. So we need to be open-minded and not base our judgments in selecting talent based off experience. We should be thinking about what the key capabilities are that link to job performance and culture fit.
Right. So a more, I would say, well thought of set of competencies, not just looking at the job description, not just looking at, do we require 3 years, do we require 5 years, do we require a certain course, but really looking what are the traits and competencies that would lend itself to certain jobs. So as you said, maybe
Okay.
grit is something that a lot of jobs are looking for now, because we're expecting people to manage their own schedules, to power through and deliver on commitments even as they're working from their homes or working remotely. So that's amazing. Let's talk about candidate experience. And I'll go back to
Yep.
LA. Isn't it a struggle to do onboarding, to do requirements? You said you even had to move heaven and earth for the laptops and computers to get to the houses of people you don't know that you just hired. So we have a question from our audience. Theo from Fujitsu was asking, how do we fully onboard new hires? How do you secure pre-employment requirements, background investigation? How do you map out the candidate experience journey for your new hires today, LA?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, I'm sure HR people would know like NBI. I mean, you can get an NBI now, like they're closed, right? I mean, I think really assessing which ones are the must-haves, for us. Because I mean, you did anyway, I would suppose, a background check, on previous employers. So in a way, you would have an idea, whether this person had a good background in the absence of an, NBI clearance. So it's really looking at all those details and asking ourselves, stepping back, do we really need this now, or can that candidate provide it after we've resumed normal operations or the government offices have asked? And it's really working with the other departments. I mean, we do virtual onboarding because in all our onboarding, I do, a welcome message for everyone. I mean, I still do that now in our onboarding sessions, just, virtually. But like I said, again, stepping back, asking ourselves which ones are just the nice to haves and must haves, and then working around that process and working with the other stakeholders and the departments that you work with to ensure that even the whole onboarding experience is really good. Now we're even discussing, in our company, do we even send now like part of a starter kit? It's a care pack, for employees. They might be on day one, but it's also ensuring and also sending the message, because health and safety is one of our key values in our organization, and sending that message across. Hey, you're now an Arcadian day one, and this is how we take care of you. Having the right tools, also onboarding them on the systems and the processes that we have, and just making sure that even that 1 day onboarding is also positive and really good. I mean, we do the usual checkpoints in that whole probie period of an employee, but I think now you need to go ahead, be more personable in a way. So we ask our recruitment team, our engagement teams to have regular touch points in our HRBPs just to check how everyone is, but also making sure that we take into consideration the adjustments now that people need to make. Like I said, it's always a balancing act, going by your policy, but ensuring that also you're also flexible to adjust accordingly just because of the situation now.
Okay, so that's really a good insight, adding a bit of flexibility where we need to put it in. And I'm flashing now the candidate journey that's been shared by John, but I think from what LA mentioned is something that's also very relevant to all of us, revisiting that journey and being able to put certain technologies or certain steps and putting that in order to make sure that we can deliver our commitments on the organization side and also on the candidate side. Because you're right, people still need the feeling that they belong when they join the company, and you can't delete that just because a lot of the things have been canceled. I heard a joke that the entire 2020 has already been canceled, but for us, life goes on, work goes on. So it's really a matter of rethinking everything and then making sure that we're putting in steps that we can deliver and commitments that we can also show for. And all right, so let's move on to sourcing. And I'll go to John this time on sourcing. what are your customers saying? How are they sourcing for talent, and how are they bringing that talent across the entire funnel or the candidate journey? So it's definitely hard. You can't do physical job fairs. You can't ask a candidate face to face, how do you like our company? How interested are you? So how does that work now, and what technologies can we expect?
Yeah, well, in terms of what we're seeing with, shall we say, high volume organizations, and just once again picking up on what you're saying, Ellie, with the onboarding and the care pack and building on the designers and the health and safety, we're noticing greater use of videos right at the front end, even before the application starts. Noticing like CEOs and senior HR, human capital, are getting involved in explaining what's going on and what the key values are for our company and why you should join us. So we're definitely noticing, Ange, more personalization of through the journey, and those are some easy wins all of our listeners here can make, and it doesn't create roadblocks or disrupt the journey too much. If anything, it makes it stickier and educational for candidates to engage and also self-select. So that's, we definitely notice like a warmer entry, particularly when the clients need to spin not just on a dime, but also very quickly and don't have to integrate with other technologies. And secondly, of course, when do we go face to face? Because face to face interviewing isn't going to be around for a wee while yet. And one of the big learning points is be careful about where you put video interviewing in your journey, and who you involve at the right time. I was with a client the other day who was sharing. He said, "Oh my goodness, John, I just was trying video interviewing, and I had 9 interviewers from four different locations on the interview at the same time, staring at one candidate." Wow. So a group assessment center had gone to the other extreme, and it was like an interrogation. So really investing in thinking about how the video interviewing is implemented and what it's measuring. Another tip there, of course, is what competencies are measured where. In our experience, just focusing on 2 or 3 core competencies and value fit during a video interview is good to do. So in summary, thinking about some engaging, sticky videos you can do right at the beginning to reflect well on brand. And secondly, absolutely acknowledging that there aren't face-to-face interviews right now, but it's a great time to do video interviewing and think about the questions you ask where, and prepping your managers and leaders so the candidates are engaged.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, looking at making sure engagement happens across each side, not just candidates, not just the organization, but also for the managers themselves. So I'm speaking to Abby, chatting with her right now, and I just wanted to share a bit of the slides from the Union Bank side. So we can't get the audio quite in, but there are slides. So I definitely want to share this for her as we're chatting. So she's mentioning, a lot of the talent acquisition they've had to do was shift to mobile recruiting. So everything on a phone or a laptop, everything easily accessible, even running their own virtual series just to engage candidates. So this one is not something that a typical HR team would do, where they would sponsor online web shows or webinars, right? Just to get the engagement from candidates. But I guess that's something that we've had to adjust to because of where we are now in this situation. And of course, new age, new hire onboarding. So everything that LA talked about on the virtual side is coming into the digital platforms now. And she's also shared about, these 3 things: being clear, being strategic in your sourcing. You guys have said this as well. And don't overpromise. We were talking about trying to be flexible, but at the end of the day, delivering on our commitments too. So I'll throw the floor back to you guys, Ellie and John, just asking about your teams, the composition of your teams. Of course, we're seeing big adjustments from the strategic level. But for your teams and for your customers, what things have you told them to adjust so that you can quickly grasp everything that's happening in the now normal? Did you even change the composition of your teams because of this? LA?
Yeah, I think, we're blessed to have a very agile team. So as you know, John and Ange, agile is my favorite word for this morning. Yes. So shout out to my Arcadis team in Manila, in India,
Nice.
and in Romania. So yeah, when we hired them, we knew that we had to hire people, like I said, who are also ready for the future, the kind of talents that we need, because the business landscape would change. So we actually didn't change the team composition because like I said, they're agile, and we wanted to ensure, for example, the way it's currently set up is it's based on an account. So it's an account management type of talent acquisition. And then they're also divided into, okay, are you a sourcing or are you a recruitment officer that does the touch point? And they're quite flexible to move into that. And I think our flexibility is even outside the Philippines, the other countries that I handle, that they know, for example, if there's a big demand, for example, in India, and we have some spare capacity from the team, the talent acquisition team in Manila, then any of those in Romania, India, Manila, they can all step in and just log into our online system and do the sourcing. Of course, we've also identified which parts of the whole candidate journey or candidate experience is actually transferable from the other locations. So, we also want consistency in the candidate experience, whether you're hired in any of our locations. So, and for us, we see that it's actually sourcing, because the actual calling and talking to the candidates happen on, the location, the talent acquisitions on the ground. But we know that in terms of skills of our sourcing specialists, we want them, or the whole recruitment team has to be strategic, has good stakeholder management, can also, and when I say stakeholder management, it's not just with the candidate, but it's also the hiring managers, and even because they take care of onboarding, even the other departments that we work with, they need to be able to see the big picture. And I think also that flexibility and that business partnering skills, that, for example, we see that this is the current process, but there seemed to be a bottleneck. Are they empowered to actually ask, their line manager and say, I saw like there's something that we can improve in the process given the situation. Is that something I can recommend and tell my line manager, maybe it's time we change this? And we've actually worked that way, that even though they're like, they're on the line talking to candidates, when they spot something that needs to change given the situation now and it's affecting a candidate experience, then, they're empowered to think like, what can I do? And not just think on that person's job and see how it will affect the other team members' job. So is that something that we change across Manila, or even is that something that we need to change across global design? And like I said, the team culture is like that, that I'm also in a way a business owner, that I need to understand what my stakeholder needs and be agile and flexible in adapting if there needs to be some changes in the process and the way we do things. Then I am empowered to actually raise that concern and change things just to improve the whole candidate experience.
Right. That's a super good point. So we've got Abby from Union Bank, definitely leading the talent acquisition side of things. So tell us, Abby, what are the biggest changes that are going through with your organization, especially in this pandemic?
Okay, first and foremost, good morning, everyone. I'm really sorry. I really am in an area where it's really challenging in terms of connecting. Really just
No
nearby a
worries.
hospital. I guess it's really, something that they have set up. But anyways, well, I'm so excited to be part of this panel. But I think Angie have shown some of my slides. If you are to ask
Yes.
how are we in terms of adapting to the ECQ, it's really number one, mobile recruiting. There's not much of a shift for Union Bank because we've been doing the same ever since. No, so shifting to become a digital bank, of course, everything follows. We have to also adapt to how we are, doing the talent that we are also needing are already in the digital space. So the adoption to digital has started ever since 2 years ago. But this pandemic crisis we realize is a strong push for everyone to really be in digital space. And what we have experienced for the last 2 months, the people, the candidates are ready to shift to digital. I've shown that one of our strategy is to do mobile recruiting, and it's not that easy, especially in my case, because it's really the technology that either will work for you or not. But then again, we're excited to see many candidates already adapting to the space. The second one is we have shifted our campaigns to virtual. So everything is virtual. I would like to just highlight the Own the Future virtual series. We started this in last March 23, doing the virtual career fair, all of these career chats with different channels. We have maximized all the online platforms. And you will be also excited to see that the candidates are willing to go wherever the hiring is. It's just that we have to be, I mentioned in the slides, that you have to be clear with what with the status, no. So in the banks, not really sure how other banks is doing. We have like a slow in the process. It's really more of prioritized hiring that we'll be doing. Critical positions are identified. There are, of course, there are positions or roles that we need to slow down or delay the onboarding, mainly because the physical scenario here in Metro Manila has pushed us to do such. But right now, for talent acquisition, it's I think Miss LA has mentioned earlier, it's the sourcing. It's the high time to do sourcing. It's really sourcing that is our focus. But we have to be strategic about it. You have to be clear. We have to, we don't overpromise. We say what is, if there's really no opportunity yet, then we have to, manage the expectation. And when we started on the future virtual series, it has been the communication to the candidates that it's really for pooling, because we don't have yet solid opportunity to present to them, but we wanted to engage them this early, and the engagement really depends on how strategic you are, how are you in terms of your messaging, and also what I realized as well for talent acquisition, there's not much of cost. Everything is free.
Right,
You just have to be
right.
creative with all the campaigns. You have to be consistent. Consistency is the key. It's not just when you release a job fair campaign in virtual. It's just one time, big time. It needs to be consistent. And you segmentize. Segmentize depends on the audience, the target audience, because everyone has different motivations and interests. They, you have different kind of attraction to each and every kind of roles that you wanted to attract. And then I would like to just highlight our experience with the virtual series. we realized, that the candidates are already ready. And every time, I think there's one activity that we asked the candidates to like send a video of them answering questions that are related to our crisis right now. And we were very happy to see different videos. It's just that I cannot show it; it's too big of a file. So much of the videos were sent that are very creative. So you can also see, the resiliency, the positivity of the candidates amidst the situation that we are here. There's also a change in the behavior. So you look through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you look through not just the competencies, it's really more of how resilient are these people, especially us in the bank, where 1/3 of our population are frontliners. We haven't really, closed our banks at the start of the ECQ. It's really business as usual, but the back room operations, the back end like us, we are working from home. It's a challenge, supporting all the frontliners, and we're here at at our houses, working like nothing is happening, like nothing is happening. It's just a normal, and I guess this is what a new normal means.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Adi. So, you know what? It's so interesting because everyone is saying the same thing. It's grit, it's resilience, and LA's favorite word, which is agility, right? And that's not changing. We're expecting it not just from the organization as a whole, we're expecting it from our teams in HR, from our candidates as well. So that's pretty interesting. So I'll go to John very quickly. You talked about candidate experience. Just wanted to get your weigh in on the sourcing side of things, and again, some technologies that could help. Is there anything specific that you wanted to share to the audience right now on the sourcing side and being creative about sourcing your candidates? John?
Well, in terms of sourcing, and what we're noticing is being really creative in leveraging company brand through social media and sending positive messages out through social media, and marrying that with links to apply. We've noticed a real uptick in that, and linked again to what we were all mentioning earlier, videos. And then straight to some early assessment to handle the volume, and focusing, like you say, on grit and resilience. And back to my other favorite, conscientiousness. So just focusing on the candidate journey, leveraging social media to get the message outbound, and gathering predictive data early to spend more time with fewer candidates.
Right,
and
that's a great
even
insight.
more important. Yeah, that's even more important now that there's more video interviewing, which we want to be more, shall we say, more engaging. So the fewer video interviews we can have, it saves us time. So the more effort we put into screening in an engaging way can have a real payoff.
Right. So, even if we're talking about the luxury of time, everybody's talking about this, you have more time now.
Yeah.
In a way, that's also not true, because we are becoming even more responsible with our time. And so we need to make sure, exactly as you said, John, that we're spending time with the right candidates. We're not doing a post and pray approach where, we just tell everybody and hope and pray that it comes back to us as good candidates, right? So last question that I want to go around the room before we close, right? Metrics. Have the metrics changed? Are we still measuring the same thing? In our last webinar, there are a lot of HR leaders that are saying our metrics have changed to looking at the values, making sure that our recruiters and our HR teams are delivering on the values and people get to see that. How about everyone on this panel? When we talk of metrics, I'll start with LA. When we talk of metrics, what are your key metrics right now for your team and maybe for your larger organization? LA?
Yeah, for us, like for the talent acquisition team, it has remained the same. So it's still, of course, our costs per hire, the engagement level of our candidates, because usually we would ask our candidates whether they pass or fail to answer a candidate experience survey. So that's something that we also still measure, of course, the turnaround time as well. But specifically for the talent acquisition team, we also look at their utilization, how busy they are. And not because we're not saying, oh, you're not busy, so I think we have a problem. It's more of, for example, you're not busy. How can we use you better? I mean, can the other teams also be of use to your spare time? Like, can I lend you to India, to Romania, or even other sections of HR? Because we'd like to think our HR teams are agile and they can adapt and help out in the other sections of HR. So that's something that we regularly monitor now. So it in terms of talent acquisition specific, it's still the same, but in terms of our team, we now look at their current utilization, not because we want to check whether effective or not. It's really how we can ensure that we give additional support to other team members not located in the Philippines to support them. And that means not just in talent acquisition, but in other aspects of HR.
Right. So really, the new metric I'm hearing from you, LA, is utilization. And I guess it's also, making sure that everyone is still on board, delivering their commitments, and really playing as a team during this time. So that's a good point. Abby, any metrics that stand out for you and Union Bank?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with LA. There's not much of a change, but there's just a highlight or a stress in candidate experience. This includes actually those candidates, whether we are hiring them or not. It's really very important that we take care of the feedback. We are now online platform, and it's easy actually to get feedback from all of this online platform, and we take it into serious note, all the feedback that we get in all of the campaigns that we've been doing. Than everything else, it's also candidate experience and candidate feedback as a metric also gives us the direction whether to improve on, whether to continue such campaign or so. Would like to share what are the candidates. So I mentioned earlier that we started with a virtual series, and so far we received favorable feedback from the candidates. Some other are mentioning the concept is very innovating, the use of social media is very timely. So yeah, I agree. The cost of hire is very important as well. As mentioned, I shared earlier, there's a decrease in the cost of using third-party placement, because the net is giving us everything. We just have to really maximize our time, manage all the platforms, and ensure that we continue to provide excellent candidate experience in all of the processes of hiring.
Right. Thank you, Abby. And that's super great, right? The point that you just mentioned, where it's so easy to get feedback now, and there's no excuse for us to not get it, because it's also our way to make adjustments to our process. So we're not adjusting just because everyone else is adjusting, but we are in fact adjusting to our candidates and to our end customers within the recruitment and talent acquisition space. Thank you. So
Yes.
next is John. Metrics that we need to watch out for, especially when you're using technologies. Go for it, John.
Yeah. Well, just for so great to be with you, Abby and Elliot. In terms of thinking through the metrics, I think the key thing to have nearby is a very capable intern providing you with data right now on how everything's going for you. So when you're interrogated by your chief financial officer on budget requirements and things that need to change, you've got data ready for him or her. I was in a meeting the other day where one of our clients was having to change quickly and being asked very quickly, of course, what is this going to cost and how long is it going to take? So just being prepared, and whether it's an intern or your favourite up-and-comer in your team, have them nearby looking very prepared. I just remember that meeting where I think it was an intern. The intern was so prepared with the metrics, not just in terms of the current challenges, but the benefits of some change. So I just really coach our listeners not to try and do everything themselves, to have some allies by their side that bundles some benefits for change into the candidate journey, as the guys have mentioned, and also the outputs in terms of speed. One big metric, of course, is what has this done for our time to hire? For our accounting clients, for example, who are still very much into hiring the interns as quickly as they can to get them on the team, they want to make sure it's done as quickly as possible. So going in and saying that you can do it faster than your competitors is a key metric, for example. So having an intern by your side, forearmed and forewarned for when you're meeting with the budget team, and having metrics to show how you're speeding up the candidate journey, turning lemon into lemonade, and of course
Awesome.
measuring the values. That would be what I'd be focusing on.
I love that. I love that. Turning lemon into lemonade, using data to make sure we're justifying our investments and our activities, because sometimes there are those who want to fully outsource everything, but it's not bringing the metrics that the organization needs. It could be also the opposite, wherein there are organizations that insist that they want to do everything, but that's now sacrificing cost per hire, that's now sacrificing time to hire and quality of hire. So you definitely want to go back to that balance and make sure you're picking the things that you're good at and bringing them in, and then being able to look at what you're not good at and using or utilizing technologies or outsourcing functions to push that forward. All right, so I'm going to let our panelists think of their closing messages for the HR community today. So last statements from everyone. And while they're thinking about that, I just want to make some final reminders and invitations to our audience today. So I'm coming on to our final notes. And the first thing that I wanted to request everyone to do is please provide us feedback. Let us know how we can improve our Webinar Wednesdays. Let us know what we're doing right, what you enjoyed about this session. If you have any last-minute questions, I can throw that into the panel discussion, or you can just send it to us and we're happy to pick that up and reply back to you. So please, on your frame, you'll see feedback. I appreciate if you can provide that to us now while you're in the webinar, so that we can learn and improve for our next Webinar Wednesdays. All right, and as you're doing that, I'm just gonna do a rundown of our other announcements. Please be mindful that you will get a copy of the webinar recording. You can share this to your teams. You can share these to colleagues that you feel might find relevance in everything that was shared today. So don't worry. You don't need to take screenshots of the screen. We will be sharing with you the entire recording in the next 24 hours. Another reminder for the additional resources, please feel free to download anything that you need from your panel. Again, I believe it's on the left side. Download any resources from our resource list that you feel you can use and bring back to your teams. All right, so I hope you've answered the feedback and you've enjoyed everything. We're now going to do some closing statements for the HR community. And again, I'm going to start with LA, followed by Abby, and then John. All right, so LA, please take it away.
Yeah, I think our role now as HR is quite critical to the business now. While we say we have to do social distancing, it's important that we stay close to the business. And that means trying to understand what they really need during this time. And it can mean changing the way we work now, which talks about our agility and our adaptability to change the way we work. It's also staying close with our stakeholders, the talents that are out there. We need to listen more so that we know what they actually need and how we can improve. It's ensuring that whatever HR programs, whether in talent acquisition and other facets of HR, it's something that is relevant and will make an impact to the business, not just a nice to have, feel good initiative, but it's something that would really give impact to the business. And we say that HR's job is to take care of people. I think I've also realized during this stage that it's okay to ask for help. You know, if you are overwhelmed, it's important that as we take care of our people, we also know how to take care of ourselves. And I think all the more people in the HR community need to watch out for each other and support each other during this difficult time. I know sometimes we have to put a brave face out there and say, okay, we'll take care of you, we'll take care of the org, without us realizing that, yes, our energy resources are already depleted and it's time for us to recharge as well. So I hope you're all keeping safe. Like I said, take care of yourself. We cannot give from an empty cup. So it's important that we remain positive so that we can also send that positive vibes out there, whether to our respective teams and whether to the talents that we reach out to.
Thank you, LA. Very wise words and something that we definitely want to take with us today. Take care of ourselves. That's how we take care of others. Abby, your final thoughts?
Okay. Well, I would like to just use the statement of our chairman, Dr. Tito Ortiz. In this current situation that we're in, I think we have to see the silver lining. People are shifting to digital. And now, us HR professionals, we have to also be digital to the core. We always have to be ready. Agree with you that we, sometimes are the ones carrying our organization. So if we wanted, people, our employees to go on digital, we also have to be digital ourselves. And yes, in a human touch, yes, we have to also take care of ourselves. Just the same that we also have to, are taking care of our employees. Best time to be with HR right now. That's what I feel.
Absolutely agree. Best time to be in HR. Best time to be in HR. Thank you very much, Abby. All right, John, final words for our HR community. Anything you want them to know? Go ahead.
Yep. Well, Ange, have you heard of Ernest Shackleton?
Nope. Go for it.
Okay, that's all right. He was... for our listeners, he was a polar explorer back in 1915, and he was off to the Antarctica, and his ship got trapped in an iceberg and got crushed. And his team of 27 people spent the next 2 years on a drifting ice cap. And many of our listeners will know about the Harvard Business Review, and I was listening to one of the podcasts on Harvard Business Review, and I think it was Nancy Cohen, who's the hostess there, was interviewing somebody who was an expert in Shackleton, how he kept his men, and I think they were all men, going for 2 years on a polar ice cap after crashing the boat. And one of the things he recommended, they all survived. They all survived. And I've really been hanging a lot on that, learning from that. Goodness gracious, how did he get through that and keep his men loyal? And the big thing I'm taking away is just I'm really working to make sure I get to the leaders in my team and get them to speak to their team and have a team briefing every day. So that's my tip, Ange.
Awesome, thank you. And with that, I also wanted to close and give you some slides, one last slide, in fact, from us, just to get in touch with us.
Here's a quick recap of key messages from our panel today. Number 1, agility, grit, resilience, and conscientiousness are critical competencies we should expect from our candidates and also ourselves during this time. The next is leadership is key to manage the change and drive digital transformation in our HR processes. Now is the best time to be in HR, and we can showcase the very same leadership we have always wanted to see in our own organizations. And lastly, rethink your recruitment in the now normal. What needs to change and what will drive the metrics such as lower cost per hire, faster turnaround time, and improved candidate onboarding. Experiment, be creative, and overcome the barriers to reach your goals. Thank you again to all our panelists, LA Cruz of Arcadis, Abby Cabarte of Union Bank, and John Austin of Talgent. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you in future Webinar Wednesdays here at TalentView.